I'm Rabbi Jonah Pesner, the director of the Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism, the largest denomination in Jewish life, and we are so honored to be here with all of our constituent partners, particularly the Union for Reform Judaism, more than 900 congregations and nearly 2 million souls, our president, Rabbi Rick Jacobs, our chair, Darrell Messinger, and also representing the 2,000 rabbis of the Central Conference of American Rabbis, represented by the chief executive, Rabbi Steve Fox. We are all here as part of this movement of Nitzavim, those who step up, those who stand up, those who reach out and do the work, because we know that racial justice and election protection is at stake now, today, in America. We are here to Nitzavim. We are here, Nitzavim, standing tall this day, hearing God's call, as God called in antiquity, generations ago, to all of us to assemble at the mountain, all of us, to hear God's call and respond to God's demand, and in doing the mitzvot, the sacred, holy acts of justice, to bring holiness into the world, to be a blessing. When we nitzavim, when we stand up, we bring blessing into the world. And generations of Jewish leaders before us led the way. Rabbis Heschel and Eisendrath, Al Vorspan, Goodman, Cheney, Schwerner, many, many Jews who lived the dream of racial justice and civil rights 50 years ago. They heard God's call of Nitzavim, and they led the Jewish people as allies and as partners for the important work of racial justice in America. And so it was that one such leader, Kivi Kaplan, challenged our movement. He was the president of the NAACP. He was the last white Jewish president of the NAACP, and also a member of our board of the Reform Jewish Movement. And he demanded that the Reform movement become the hub of civil rights and social justice in America. And in Washington, the Religious Action Center, which is where what was drafted? The Voting Rights Act. In our conference room, a Reform Jewish institution, we take so seriously our legacy that we hosted the leadership conference, that we have been partners, sisters and brothers with the NAACP since our very beginning. And so, when Shelby was decided by the Supreme Court of the United States and eviscerated our beloved Voting Rights Act, we got angry. But we also heard the words of Dr. King, who said, hate does not drive out hate. Love drives out hate. Only love can do that. So we turn from our anger to our love, and our love leads us to organize, to reach across lines of difference, to join hands, to hear one another's voices, to build power, and to make change. Remembering that until Shelby, the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act in particular, was reauthorized every time by bipartisan majorities of Congress. It was reauthorized with the signatures of presidents who were both Republican presidents and Democratic presidents. Suddenly, 3 years ago, the Voting Rights Act became partisan. It was driven out by hate. We will reclaim it out of love. Since Shelby, lo and behold, 16 of these United States passed voter suppression laws. And you know what they are, the voter ID laws and the laws limiting extended days of voting. And so, what do you call it, Soul Sundays? Souls to the polls, right? A direct attack on souls to the polls and a whole variety of other ways that would enfranchise more people to vote. This is America. We want people to vote. But somehow, 17 states decided it would be a good idea if fewer people had the right to vote. And so we organized out of love to beat back those voter suppression laws. And during those years, while the right to vote was being denied, we saw Ferguson, we saw Baltimore, we saw Cleveland, we lost Freddie Gray, Tamir Rice, Michael Brown, and we realized the soul of our democracy was at stake, and the lives of our brothers and sisters were on the line. And so we cannot sit on the nostalgia of the words that the Voting Rights Act was drafted in our conference room. It has to be alive in our churches, in our synagogues, in our mosques, right here. So last year when President Brooks, the president of the NAACP, called to us, the Reformed Jewish movement, and said, where are you? Are you Nitzavim? Are you standing up? Because he said, our lives are at stake and our votes must count. He asked, will you come to Selma? Will you bring some rabbis to carry the Torah from Selma to Washington in a march to prove that our lives matter and our votes must count? And we said yes. And more than 200 rabbis brought leaders and teens and congregants to Selma and carried the Torah for 1,000 miles to Washington, D.C. And as President Brooks likes to say, that is 10% of all the rabbis of Reformed Judaism in America. And he said 1 in 10 Baptist priests didn't come, ministers, 1 in 10 of any other clergy didn't come, 1 in 10 rabbis carried that Torah. But we knew that wasn't enough. And then we heard the call from Reverend Barber. Reverend Barber called to us and said, it's great that you carried that Torah in those hot summer days from Selma to Washington. But now that metaphor, that symbol, that statement has to be alive. Because here, he said, in North Carolina, all is at stake. Will you come be with us here in North Carolina, where a terrible voter suppression law passed, which would deny the right to vote to tens of thousands of people? By the way, what do we know about all these voter suppression laws? Who do they target? People of color, black communities in particular, and all of the most vulnerable to voter disenfranchisement. And so this year, we're not just marching with the Torah from Selma to Washington. We are marching, we are standing up, and we are mobilizing here in North Carolina, and then for the next 3 months, across the United States, in Georgia, and in Ohio, and in Florida, and in New York, and in California, to make sure that every vote will count, because by some estimates, millions and millions of people who were able to vote in the 2008 presidential election will not be allowed to vote in this election unless we beat back these voter suppression laws. That's right. And so we join together in love, because today's Tu B'Av. Everybody say Tu B'Av. All right, so I'm not going to get too worked up and angry, because it's a love day. I know I get worked up about this stuff, but I'm going to stay full of joy, because it's about the love of our partners with NAACP and Reverend Barber, our love of PICO, and our love of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights that have joined with us to train us, teach us, and lead us to become effective agents of change. And by the way, we're not alone here as the Reformed Jewish community. When it got out there in the Jewish world that we were going to exercise our commitment to love by fighting for voting rights this summer, we heard from the National Council of Jewish Women International, Jewish Community Action, TRUA, the Rabbis Call for Human Rights, the Jewish Community Relation Council of Washington, D.C., the Rabbinical Assembly of Conservative Judaism, and the Reconstruction Rabbinical Association all said, we are Nitzavim, we are stepping up, we are with you, and they have all signed on to this campaign, which is now the love of all the Jewish people. So finally, we are Nitzavim, we are rising up demanding for racial justice. We are rising up demanding that every vote counts. We are rising up because black lives do matter. We are rising up. And we did not start rising up 50 years ago with the Voting Rights Act. We did not start rising up 50 years ago with the Civil Rights Act. We started rising up 5,000 years ago when we were the people that broke off the shackles of Egyptian slavery. And when we came out of Egypt, God told us, do not forget that you were slaves in Egypt. Every generation of Jews has to remember that we were slaves in Egypt, and therefore we are to love the widow, the orphan, and the stranger. We are to work to free the slave, because we didn't start marching 5,000 years ago for nothing. We marched 5,000 years for justice, and we will march for 5,000 more years if that's what it takes to bring about justice.